Dad, my mother-in-law doesn't want to see you for Christmas. My son said it like he was reading a weather report, but the next day his mother-in-law stood on his porch with a sheriff's deputy and took his house out from under him. Now my son, his wife, and my grandkids are sleeping in my spare bedroom, and I'm the one holding the paperwork that can destroy his mother-in-law's life. What would you do if you were me? If you have a minute, read my story to the end and tell me if I went too far. I still don't know if what I did was justice or revenge. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 69 years old, a retired construction contractor from Colorado, a widower, and a grandfather of 3. My son Daniel is 35, married to Melissa, and they've got 2 little ones, Lily and Jake. 10 years ago, I built the foundation for my own company. 5 years ago, I sold it and used part of that money to help my son buy his dream house. That house became the battlefield where his mother-in-law humiliated me, took everything from him, and gave me a choice: walk away or step into a war I never wanted. It started 2 weeks before Christmas. Snow was piled in soft drifts along the curb as I walked up the stone path toward Daniel and Melissa's house. My knees ached in the cold, but seeing the warm yellow light in their front windows always made me stand a little straighter. I'd paid for those windows. Paid for most of that house, if we're being honest. When Daniel and Melissa first got married, they had student loans, 1 beat-up car, and a dream of a proper family home. Banks weren't lining up to lend to a junior sales rep and a part-time yoga instructor. I'd co-signed on the mortgage, fronted the down payment, and picked up more than a few of the renovation bills when Melissa suddenly couldn't live with the builder-grade kitchen. "Dad, you're investing in your grandchildren's future," Daniel had said back then, hugging me with that same earnestness he'd had as a kid. I had believed him. That evening, when I stepped inside their foyer, the first thing I noticed was how much the house smelled like someone else's taste. Not my son's, not my late wife Ellen's. Expensive vanilla candles, some kind of imported pine wreath on the banister, a 12-foot artificial tree in the living room, dripping with glass ornaments that looked like they cost more than my first pickup. Melissa liked to remind everyone that her mother, Nancy Walker, had standards. "Hey, Dad." Daniel gave me a hug, stiff and quick. "You made it." "Where else would I be?" I clapped him on the shoulder. "I was thinking, this year I could do the Christmas turkey. The real one. My lemon brined one. Ellen's recipe. We could all—" He flinched before I finished the sentence. I felt it under my hand, his whole body tensing. "Dad." He took a breath and looked past me, toward the hallway, like he was checking if someone was listening. "We need to talk about Christmas." The words were so familiar they made my skin prickle. Years ago, my lawyer had said the same thing right before telling me my business partner was trying to cut me out of a deal. "Talk about it?" I tried to keep it light. "I figured we'd just eat it." He didn't smile. He swallowed. His wedding ring caught the light from the tree as he twisted it. "Dad, my mother-in-law doesn't want to see you for Christmas." For a second, I thought he was joking. Then I saw his eyes. He couldn't hold my gaze. "What?" My voice sounded thin, even to me. "Why?" He stared at the marble coffee table we'd picked out together months earlier, when Melissa decided their old one looked cheap. I'd paid for that, too. "Nancy and my father-in-law are coming to stay for the week," he said. "They have traditions. They don't want extra people." Extra people. That was what I was now. A category. "In my son's house?" I asked quietly. He winced. "Dad, please. You know Nancy. She thinks you make things uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" "In front of people," he added quickly. "You say what you think. She's worried you'll say something about money or politics or about the fact that I own the note on this place." I didn't raise my voice, but his head jerked up, because that was something Nancy didn't know. When I'd helped them buy the house, I'd done more than co-sign. I'd lent them the full down payment and the closing costs as a private loan secured by a second deed of trust. My lawyer had made sure the paperwork was done right. Daniel signed it. Melissa rolled her eyes and signed it too, after muttering something about old-fashioned paranoia. They'd paid on time for 3 years. Then the payments got smaller. Then sporadic. Then, "We'll catch up next month, Dad." Melissa had a rough month at the studio. I'd forgiven a lot, but I hadn't forgotten the paperwork. "Dad, please don't start." Daniel's cheeks flushed. "Nancy thinks it's weird you're always bringing up what you paid for." "I'm always bringing it up," I repeated slowly. "Or she's always asking." He rubbed his face. "It's just easier if you don't come this year. We can do something after. Maybe New Year's." New Year's? Like Christmas was a dentist appointment you could reschedule. "Where exactly am I supposed to be on Christmas?" I asked. "Eating a TV dinner alone in front of the game?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered. "It's just one holiday. Don't make this harder." I looked around the room. Crown molding, hardwood floors, the custom shelves in the family room that I designed myself. Every nail in that house had a story that ended with my checkbook. "I see," I said. "Dad," I put my hand on the doorknob. "Tell Nancy something for me," I said without turning around. "Merry Christmas." The December air slapped my face when I stepped outside. I walked down the stone path past the bushes I'd planted, to the truck I'd bought with my own money, not anybody's favor. My reflection in the window looked older than I felt. In the cab, my hands shook as I put the keys in the ignition. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Daniel. "Please don't be mad, it's just one Christmas." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I set the phone face down, started the engine, and drove home. I told myself I was done. Done with the house. Done with their drama. Done with bending until I broke. I was wrong. The call came at 8:17 the next morning. I was in the kitchen, frying eggs and listening to the radio, when the house phone rang. Not my cell. The old landline, the one that only telemarketers and my son ever used. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked up. "Yeah?" There was a pause. Then I heard it. The sound I hadn't heard since Daniel was 10 and called me from school after breaking his arm. A raw, panicked breath. "Dad?" His voice cracked. "Dad, she took the house." The spatula slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. "Slow down," I said. "Who took what?" "Nancy," he choked out. "Mom-in-law. She took the house. We're being kicked out right now." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What do you mean she took it?" "She's here with a deputy and a locksmith," he said. I could hear crying in the background. "Lily. She says the house is in her LLC now and we're violating the occupancy agreement. She's throwing us out, Dad." I grabbed my truck keys and was in the driveway before he finished the sentence. "Put me on speaker," I said, slamming the door and turning the ignition. "Now!" There was a jumble of noise, then a woman's voice came through the line, smooth and cold as a lawyer's letter. "Robert, this is Nancy Walker. I was wondering how long before you involved yourself." "Nancy," I said, pulling onto the main road. "Explain to me why my son is telling me you're taking his house." "His house?" She let out a laugh. "Daniel signed a quitclaim deed 6 weeks ago, along with a lease agreement. I moved the property into my investment LLC to secure a better rate and protect family assets. They're tenants now. Tenants who violated the rules by bringing in outside family conflict. It's all in the documents." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "He signed what?" "Don't pretend you didn't know," she said. "We refinanced with my lender. I told Daniel and Melissa point blank that if you continued to make scenes about money, I would revoke their occupancy. They agreed. This is me following through. You're evicting your own daughter and grandchildren right before Christmas because I hurt your feelings? She sniffed. I'm maintaining boundaries. They have 30 minutes to collect essential items. The locks are being changed. As of noon, they are trespassing if they return. I heard Melissa sobbing in the background. Mom, please, the kids. The kids, Nancy cut her off, will be fine at a hotel for a few nights until you find something appropriate. I told you I will help you with a down payment on a condo once you cut this man out of your life. This man. Put the deputy on the phone, I said. Sir, this is Deputy Carlson. Another voice came through, uneasy. This is a civil matter. They signed the documents. I've seen them. My job is just to keep the peace while they vacate. They'll have 10 days to contest the eviction in court, but for now, my grandkids were being pushed out into the snow so their grandmother could maintain boundaries. I didn't say another word. I hung up, floored the pedal, and drove. By the time I got there, the locksmith's van was already in the driveway. Boxes were stacked on the front lawn. Lily stood near the porch clutching a stuffed rabbit, cheeks streaked with tears. Jake sat on a suitcase, frozen, his Spider-Man winter hat pulled low. Daniel looked like a man who'd just crawled out of a wreck, pale, shaking. Dad, he whispered. I didn't understand what she had me sign. She said it was just paperwork to help with the interest rate. Nancy stood on the porch with her arms crossed, an immaculate wool coat wrapped tight around her. Her lipstick was perfect. Her eyes were granite. Robert, you're trespassing until I decide what's happening here, she said smoothly. This is my property now. I walked right past her and knelt in front of Lily and Jake. You kids okay? Lily shook her head and dove into my arms. Jake's chin wobbled. Grandma says we're bad, he whispered. I looked up at Nancy. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not broke, hardened. Load your things into my truck, I told Daniel. All of you. You're coming to my house. Nancy laughed. You really think you can rescue them from their own choices? They signed everything. If Melissa wants my help again, she knows what she has to do. It starts with cutting you off. I met her eyes and held them. You just made a very expensive mistake, Nancy. She smirked. Old man, you don't even know what's on those documents. She was right. I hadn't seen them yet, but I knew what was on mine. That night, after the kids fell asleep in the guest room and Daniel and Melissa sat shell-shocked at my kitchen table, I went to my office and opened the fireproof drawer at the bottom of my filing cabinet. The second deed of trust. The promissory note. The ledger of payments made and missed. Daniel followed me in, eyes red. Dad, I screwed up. I thought Mom-in-law was helping us. She said you were controlling us with money. She said this refi would give us independence. Independence. I slid the papers across the desk toward him. That's the loan you signed with me when you bought the house. You remember what the lawyer said? He stared at the document, lips moving as he reread the terms. If the collateral is transferred without my written permission, I reminded him, the full balance becomes due immediately. That's called a due on transfer clause. His shoulders sagged. We didn't tell you about the refi. No, I said, you didn't. How much do we still owe you? He whispered. $186,412, I said, and 30 cents. He winced. We don't have it. I know. What are you going to do? I looked at my son, my grown man of a son, who'd chosen his mother-in-law's approval over my dignity, and now had nothing to show for it but a trash bag of clothes and 2 terrified kids. First, I said, I'm going to call my lawyer. Then I'm going to decide what Christmas means in this family. That night, long after they'd all gone to bed, I sat alone in my office with the loan papers spread out in front of me. Ellen's photo watched me from the bookshelf, smiling in her faded summer dress. "You always said not to let pride drive us," I murmured to the empty room. "But what about justice?" The lawyer, Martin Pierce, answered on the first ring the next morning. "Robert, it's Sunday," he groaned. "This better be important. Martin, can I call a loan due if the collateral's been transferred into an LLC without my permission?" On the other end, paper rustled. "Assuming the clause is written properly and we can prove the transfer?" "Yes, the borrower either pays or you foreclose. Why?" "Because my son's mother-in-law stole his house using that very trick," I said, "and she doesn't know she just inherited his debt to me." There was a beat of silence. Then Martin's voice sharpened. "Tell me everything." I laid it out, the quitclaim deed, the lease, the eviction. He swore softly under his breath. "She's playing landlord with property that's still encumbered by your lien," he said, "which, by the way, is recorded. We can pull the title tomorrow and confirm the transfer. What are my options? Legally, you can demand full payment from Daniel, file a notice of default, and start foreclosure proceedings on the property now in her LLC," he said. "Practically, that means your own son's name will be on the default and it will wreck his credit for a decade. Are you prepared to do that?" I stared at the documents, at the column of missed payments circled in red ink. "I'm prepared to do what I have to," I said, "but I'd like to aim the damage where it belongs." Martin was quiet a long time. "There might be a way," he said eventually, "but it's not going to be pretty." Here's where the second part of the story begins, because that was the moment I stopped being the hurt father and became something else. The man Nancy should never have underestimated. If you think her taking my son's house was the end of the injustice, wait until you hear what she'd done to other people. On Monday, we pulled the title. Just like Nancy had bragged, the house had been deeded 6 weeks earlier from Daniel and Melissa Hayes, husband and wife, to Walker Family Properties, LLC. My second lien sat right underneath her brand-new mortgage with her fancy private lender. "She didn't even bother to check for existing liens," Martin said, tapping the paper. "Arrogant. Can I call it due?" "Yes," he said. "We'll send a demand letter today." "And Robert?" "Yeah?" "Make sure Daniel understands you're not doing this to destroy him," Martin said. "But you need his cooperation, at least his signature acknowledging the default. Otherwise, she argues she was an innocent purchaser. I can already hear her lawyer." Daniel sat at my kitchen table that evening with the letter in his shaking hands. Melissa hovered in the doorway, eyes swollen, face pale. "If you sign this," I said, "it starts a process that ends with that house being sold out from under Nancy's LLC if she doesn't pay me back. She's got 30 days to come up with the full amount or negotiate." "And if she does?" he asked hoarsely. "Then you're free of the debt," I said. "You owe me nothing. She does." "And if she doesn't?" "Then the house goes to auction," I said, "and I'll be waiting there with a cashier's check." Melissa bit her lip. "What if you just let it go?" I looked at her carefully. "You want me to forgive the debt so Nancy keeps the house she stole and you can someday crawl back to her?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I didn't know what she was doing," she whispered. "She said it was temporary, that she would protect us from you." There it was. "And now?" I asked. Tears spilled over. "Now I see what she is." Daniel signed. His hand shook, but his signature was clear. We mailed the demand letter via overnight courier. Nancy called me 3 days later. "Robert," she snapped as soon as I answered, "I received some ridiculous document from your attorney. What game do you think you're playing?" "No game," I said. "You moved collateral securing a 6-figure debt without the lender's consent. The lender is calling the loan due." "You can't do this to Daniel," she hissed. "He's your son." "I'm not doing it to Daniel," I said calmly. "I'm doing it to the entity that holds title, Walker Family Properties, LLC. You wanted to be the owner. Owners take the liabilities too." She laughed. short and sharp. "I'll have this thrown out in court by Friday. No judge will side with some old man trying to punish his family. And when I'm done, I'll make sure Daniel never sees those kids again if he stays with you." "Nancy," I kept my voice level, "you took his house to hurt me. You did it using paperwork you barely understood. You made my grandchildren cry on the lawn while you changed the locks. If you think you'll walk away without consequences, you're dumber than I thought." "You don't scare me," she snapped. "My brother is a lawyer." "Then tell him to read the recording statute and the deed of trust," I said. "We'll see who walks into court unprepared." For 2 weeks, we heard nothing. Daniel started a temporary job with my old friend's construction company. Melissa picked up holiday shifts at a retail store. The kids settled into my small house better than any of us. Lily loved the old rocking chair that had been Ellen's. Jake helped me shovel the walk. At night, after they went to bed, I sat in the dark and listened to the house breathe. Sometimes I wondered if Ellen would approve of what I was doing. Sometimes I thought of Nancy's face when she'd called me old man on that porch. On the 29th day after the demand letter, Martin called. "She didn't respond," he said. "We file the notice of default tomorrow. Foreclosure proceedings begin next month." "Do it." The next part passed in a blur of paperwork and dates. The notice was recorded. Letters went out to all parties. The bank holding Nancy's mortgage called her in a panic. They'd lent on a property with a junior lien they hadn't fully understood. Her brother, the lawyer, tried to argue procedural issues, but Martin was relentless. "Your client acquired title subject to my client's recorded lien," he said during the one meeting we agreed to. "She evicted his family and attempted to profit from the property. She will either pay, or we will exercise our rights. That's the law." Nancy's face across that polished conference table looked different without her usual confidence. Tight, pale. "You'll ruin your own son," she spat. "His name is still on those original documents." "My son lost his house the day he trusted you more than me," I said softly. "I am giving him something better, a lesson about who stands beside him when the smoke clears." We set the auction date for March 3rd. On March 2nd, my phone rang again. This time it was Melissa. "Dad," she whispered, voice shaking. "Mom just found out something about you, about your company sale. She said you're not as rich as you pretend to be, and that this foreclosure will bankrupt you. Is that true?" I almost laughed. "When I sold Hayes Construction, I took less cash up front and more stock in the acquiring company," I said. "That company doubled in value. I could buy your old house 10 times over and still have money left. Nancy is projecting. She's leveraged up to her eyelashes." Melissa was silent. Then quietly, "She mortgaged her own house to buy that rental duplex last year. If she loses this one, she might lose that too." "That's her problem," I said. "I think she's finally scared," Melissa said, "for the first time in her life." March 3rd dawned cold and bright. The county auction was held in a bland meeting room at the courthouse. A dozen strangers in coats and worn shoes clustered around the clerk's table, all eyeing the stack of foreclosure files. Nancy swept in 10 minutes late, her brother in tow, both of them in expensive suits that didn't hide the strain on their faces. "You still have time to walk away from this," she hissed as she passed me. "So do you," I said. "Pay what you owe." She lifted her chin. "We'll outbid you." The clerk called the case number. "Trustee's sale, property known as 1843 Willow Bend Lane." My son's old address. Opening bid was low. The remaining balance on Nancy's bank mortgage. 2 investors bid. Nancy raised her hand, her voice tight as she named a figure. I let them fight it out until the price reached my magic number. The balance she owed me, plus the years of quiet humiliation, plus the sight of my grandchildren shivering on the lawn. Then I raised my hand. $250,000 above the last bid. Heads turned. Nancy's eyes widened. "You can't have more money than me," she whispered. "You're a retired contractor." "Retired," I corrected. "Not stupid." Her brother hissed in her ear, She bid again, but her voice trembled. She was nearing her limit. I could see it in the way her hands shook. I added another 20,000, then another 10 when one investor tried to push. His shoulders dropped. He stepped back. "Sold," the clerk finally said, banging the rubber stamp onto the form, "to Robert Hayes." The sound echoed in the room like a gavel of a different kind. Nancy stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You set this up," she croaked. "You wanted this outcome from the beginning." "No," I said quietly. "From the beginning, all I wanted was Christmas with my family. You're the one who turned it into a war." 3 weeks later, after the redemption period expired and the paperwork cleared, a new deed was recorded. Title to 1843. Willow Bend Lane transferred again, this time into Hayes Family Trust, with me as trustee, and beneficiaries listed as Lily Hayes and Jacob Hayes. Not Daniel, not Melissa, certainly not Nancy. On a mild April afternoon, I drove Daniel and the kids back to the house that had once been theirs. The grass was overgrown. A realtor's lockbox hung on the door. Nancy had stripped the place of some furniture before vacating, but she hadn't taken the memories. Lily squeezed my hand. "Grandpa, are we allowed to be here?" I pressed a new key into her palm. "More than allowed," I said. "Come on." Inside, dust motes danced in the sun. The house felt smaller somehow, stripped of the pretension Nancy had wrapped it in. Daniel stood in the doorway, speechless. "Dad, what did you do?" "I bought the house at auction," I said. "It's in a trust now, for your children. One day, when they're adults, and they've proven they can handle responsibility, it'll be theirs. Not yours. Not Melissa's. And definitely not Nancy's." Tears filled his eyes. "You did all of this? After what I said to you?" "You're my son," I said. "But you're also a grown man. I won't let you hide behind your mother-in-law's skirt forever. You want to live here again someday? You talk to your kids. Convince them, not me. They're the landlords now, not you." Melissa leaned against the wall, crying silently. "I don't deserve this kindness," she whispered. "No," I said. "You don't. But they do." I nodded at Lily and Jake. They're not going to spend their lives paying for adults' mistakes if I can help it. We spent the rest of the day cleaning. The kids raced through empty rooms, reclaiming spaces that had been taken from them by one woman's ego. On the mantel, I left one thing that wasn't there before. A framed document behind glass. A copy of the trust's key clause. Under a paragraph of legal language, the last sentence was written in plain English. Under no circumstances may Nancy Walker reside in, control, or receive financial benefit from the property at 1843 Willow Bend Lane. I didn't expect her to see it that quickly, but fate has a sense of timing. 2 days later, I pulled into the driveway with a box of tools when a familiar silver SUV screeched to a stop at the curb. Nancy climbed out, hair disheveled, makeup imperfect for the first time since I'd known her. "You!" she hissed, storming up the walkway. "You think you can just take everything from me?" I stepped aside as Lily and Jake appeared in the doorway behind me. Daniel was inside painting. "Watch your language," I said mildly. "Kids are listening." She looked past me and saw them. Then she saw the framed document on the mantel. She pushed past me into the house and stood in front of it, reading. Her face went from pale to crimson. "You wrote my name," she said hoarsely. "You actually wrote my name into it." "Correct," I said. "I don't usually believe in curses, but that's about as close as I get. You vindictive old—" She caught herself, glancing at the kids. "You ruined my credit, my investment property, everything. I had to sell my beach condo to cover the other loans. Do you know what that feels like?" I thought about Lily's small hand clutching a garbage bag in the snow. "Yes," I said. "I know exactly what it feels like to watch someone you love be kicked out of their home so they can protect their image. That's why I made sure you'll remember this every time you drive past this street." She took a step toward me. "I'll fight this," she spat. "I'll challenge the trust. I'll tell everyone you manipulated an old loan to wreck us. You're welcome to try, I said. But every lawyer you hire is going to tell you the same thing. You moved collateral you didn't fully own to hurt someone else. The law isn't on your side, and for once, neither is public opinion. Daniel stepped out of the hallway, roller dripping with off-white paint. Mom, he said quietly, you should go. She turned to him, slapped by the word. Mom, without in-law. Daniel, she's twisted everything, Nancy pleaded. You can't really choose him over me. After everything I've done for you. You took our house, he said. Grandpa gave it back to our kids. That's the difference between you. Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Lily moved closer to me. Grandma Nancy, she said softly, you made us cry. The little girl's voice did what all my legal maneuvers never could. It broke something in Nancy's composure. Her shoulders slumped. For a moment, I saw a human being under the layers of arrogance. Then her eyes hardened again. You'll regret this, she said to me. Both of you. She walked out, heels tapping angrily against the floor. The SUV sped away, leaving a faint trail of exhaust and a heavy silence behind. That night, when the kids were in bed and the paint rollers were washed, Daniel and I sat in the empty living room. I'm sorry, he said again, staring at his hands. For choosing her side, for throwing Christmas in your face. I'm not innocent either, I said. I used money to solve every problem for years. I thought if I built enough, paid enough, gave enough, no one would ever push you out like my father pushed me out. Maybe I made it too easy for you to trust the wrong people. We sat there a while, listening to the quiet. What now? He asked. Now? I looked at the bare walls. Now you work. You save. You show your kids what responsibility looks like. And every year on Christmas, you remember what happens when you let other people decide who counts as family. Next Christmas, my house was full. Lily and Jake decorated my small tree in the living room. Daniel and Melissa brought a home-cooked meal. There were no towering fake trees or catered dinners. Just us, mismatched plates, and the ghost of Ellen's laughter floating through the room. I made something, Lily announced, handing me a folded piece of paper. Inside was a crayon drawing of our 3 houses, my small one, their rental, and the big house on Willow Bend Lane, with Lily plus Jake's house, not Nancy's, scrawled under it. I laughed, a sound that finally felt clean in my chest. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I'd just gone far enough. So tell me honestly, was I wrong to use every legal tool I had to take back my son's house from his mother-in-law and lock her out of it forever? Or was this the only way to make sure my family finally learned where their real home and their real loyalty should be?
My grandpa's worst really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.